PCO Trading coming to you with another VIP live stream. It is Monday and it's part of our weekly video series, guys. We like to go over just a live stream in depth of what we're looking at for the week, what we're looking at as far as trading goes, as far as setups goes. First things first, guys, shout out to the stream sponsors. Shout out to CoinCatch. They are the perpetual exchange of choice. That's what I use for most of my trading. I know a lot of you guys use it, and they got a great CEO, a great team behind them. You know, no VPN, no KYC. They have great trading pairs, great listings, great liquidity. Really do suggest you guys get over on CoinCatch and use it. And then shout out to Breakout Prop, guys. Breakout Prop is definitely the best crypto prop firm out there. Again, when I first started in traditional markets, I was using a prop firm. You know, it's a great way to get funded without a lot of risk. It helps get you to understand the process of trading without being so exposed to your own capital. So big shout out to the stream sponsors, guys, of CoinCatch and Breakout Prop. Crazy end of the week into the weekend with everything going on with Iran and Israel. So a lot of headlines have hit, right? A lot of emotional trading has kind of happened. And that's something that we're going to kind of go over into today as far as technicals goes, as far as setups goes, and all that good stuff. So this is our current NPOC setup on BTC, right? We just now tagged 107,690. Again, guys, this is what I love, right? Taking profits into those higher NPOC levels along with confluence of like upper limit resistance levels. So Thursday, I think, was when all the news hit, right? All the bombings has kind of started, and, you know, really the attack on Israel had kind of started from Iran. So a lot of headlines, a lot of hate was kind of happening out there, a lot of downside, but that downside wasn't something that we weren't already anticipating. If you guys notice, we did have this long at 6.9, right? So what was that? 7 days ago, something like that. So we were already kind of noticing that we wanted some downside at the beginning of the week. And we actually had 3 NPOC levels to the downside, right? We created both of these game plans as we started to get into upper limit resistance on BTC. Not only upper limit resistance, but we did have NPOC levels up there as well. And these NPOC levels up at 109,597 and 108,547. This is where we created that short, right? And again, I did not take the short. You guys know me. This would have been a great short trade. I know some of the traders took it and they were profitable on it, so congrats to you. But for me, I am more of a take profits into resistance and have patience for lower to re-add those longs and kind of catch more upside, right? Not the biggest shorter, especially within this market environment. But yeah, you know, we kind of saw all this coming, and really this kind of comes from just our longs that we created previously. We got a retest of that 103,665, that 104,888. Those NPOC prints is what we wanted, and so we got it, right? So that's why taking profits into the top based off those NPOC levels, based off those resistance levels, and based off that short setup, and then also having patience for that downside. Now, what pushed us to this downside? Well, it was obviously those headlines, but we had wanted this retest before headlines had even hit. So when headlines start happening, the war starts kind of breaking out, everybody kind of starts freaking out. You know, it's kind of one of those things to where you still have to kind of trust your setups, right? Because we wanted this retest. The retest, that 103,665, wasn't anything to really worry me because I know we had already planned for it. So again, I'm going to try and drill this into you guys as much as I can. 3 steps: create the game plan, patience for the game plan, and then execute the game plan. So this was kind of that execution. And I sent it over to you guys in the Telegram as well. Hey, this is where execution needs to happen, right? We had patience for the downside. Now you have to execute. But I can guarantee you, most people started to turn bearish on this downside. And I get it, guys. I get the bearishness. I get the scare, the World War III scare, innocent people, you know, getting hurt and dying, right? So I get all of that. But really, as far as technical goes and as far as our trading goes, we really just like to create these plans. And then yes, those headlines sometimes push us lower, just exactly like it kind of happened here when we wanted that retest of that 102,956 is what we wanted. So what helped us get that retest? Well, it was Trump and Elon fucking arguing on Twitter, right? So you got to understand, it doesn't matter what is happening as far as headline goes, as far as macro goes. Yes, there's certain things that you want to pay attention to, especially with like the stock market, traditional stocks, all that sort of stuff, TradeFi. But for the majority of it, I just stick to my game plans. And I think a lot of you guys can kind of benefit from that as well. Now, did we catch the exact bottom on this move? No, we didn't catch the fucking exact bottom, but that's not my point, right? My point isn't to catch this fucking Pico bottom to long. My point is to find an area to dollar cost average into. And if you were dollar cost averaging into that 104,888 and also that 103,665, getting an average within that area, well, it bodes well right now because fast forward, we are now hitting that 107,690 NPOC print, guys. So let this be like a lesson. Headlines happen. And when they happen, you can't freak out, because if you game plan ahead of time based off your own technicals, based on your own trading, those headlines can push the price down to the level that we want. So let's just kind of get into Ethereum, right? So what are we basing our longs out of? Well, we were basing our longs out of that 2540. We got it. Now, was it the exact bottom? No. But I don't care. I am not trying to get the exact bottom. So Ethereum dropped about 3.8% lower than my initial buy. But I don't give a fuck, right? That doesn't matter to me. If anything, you should like that, because then it gives you the ability to dollar cost average lower. This can be your starter position, guys. It doesn't have to be you go all in at this price point. You can take a starter position, 5% of your overall position size, right? And then look to average lower. When price goes lower, it's a gift, and people don't understand that, right? When price goes lower, you are getting a discounted buy. Yes, can price go lower and absolutely liquidate you? Yes, if you're on high leverage and you're going 100x with your entire portfolio, yes, you'll get liquidated on that 3% move. But that's not my trading style. That's not what I'm trying to teach you guys. Do people kind of see the charts on Twitter and not understand my in-depth analysis on it? 100%. But that's why the people that care, i.e. my VIP members, i.e. the guys that are in the live stream right now, will understand a lot more in depth of what I look for. Just because I have a print at 2540 doesn't mean that I think 2540 is the fucking Pico bottom. And you got to get out of that mindset, guys. And so again, another example was the long that we created down here at that 2404. What pushed us to this long was Elon and Trump bitching at each other, right? But again, we saw the retest days before the billionaires started chirping back and forth about the Epstein files, right? And again, think of how stupid that is. Price goes lower because people are talking about a guy that fucking was a pedophile. Like, it's just crazy to me. It's crazy. So it's all in the charts. It's all in the technicals. That's what I like to preach. I don't do fundamentals too much. I look at what works for me. And what works for me is NPOC levels and confluence with basic support and resistance levels. And so again, 2404 was where we longed. We were taking profits into this area. And guess what? We noticed that there was a print lower at that 2540, which I wanted a retest of. Taking profits into resistance levels and NPOC levels, along with having patience for lower to re-long and get repositioned on some of that downside. So that's what we're kind of looking for on Ethereum, guys. ETH, I think, still looks great. You know, again, we might see a little bit of downside just because looking at BTC, we did kind of tap into this NPOC print here. But again, I don't really like to make any rash decisions without seeing the print on the daily. And I think that comes around like 5 p.m. my time. Let's just say Ethereum kind of legs a little bit higher here, and we leave a print down here at that 2632, well then yes, I do think a retest of that area to get long, or you don't have to long, but just a retest of that area would be likely so that we can continue higher. Fartcoin, yes, it's just going to have massive swings, so if you can kind of hold through that. I did get bearish on Fartcoin at the lows. You know, I did kind of close out my Fartcoin trade at the lows and I wasn't really interested anymore. Then it ripped 80%. Like, but fuck me, right? You know, I'm not going to be able to catch everything. You know, like I said, you know, leading up into the 2 weeks, I've kind of really had like 7 positions open, 8 positions open, you know, with like SHIB, Fartcoin, Floki, AAVE, XRP, TON, you know, all this stuff. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I've kind of dialed it down to a little bit more of like the 3 to 4 position range. And again, ETH, Bonky, Pengu, Floki, those are the ones I'm kind of focused on. But yeah, you know, Fartcoin and SHIB do look good. I think Fartcoin is still just kind of in a range. And if you can have discipline within Fartcoin, what I mean by discipline, well, again, if you can be buying in those discounted areas and selling into the premium areas, you can really be a good trader and a profitable trader within Fartcoin, right? You know, if you're long Fartcoin, you know, here, just understand that that 127 is a no trade zone for me. You know, anywhere sitting around median ML, I'm not really interested in adding. You know, I'm interested in adding lower limit and I'm interested in, you know, adding upper limit for shorts. So I do like Fartcoin. I think that it's been one of the big movers, but again, you do have to kind of respect the fact that it fluctuates heavily and understand that, hey, you know, I could lose some decent money off of a 20% move to the downside. There's not much technicals on Hype. I think, you know, again, it's just kind of, I think my average is in like the 20s, I think 20s something. I don't know exactly where, low 20s, but this is a long-term bag for me. I think that this can get to like $80-$90. I think that it's pretty big, but you know, for me, I wouldn't be longing here. You know, we've kind of talked about this, you know, break above, retest of that once resistance, now support, and then having that leg higher. So again, it's just a fucking monster. It's just an absolute monster. If you can get in the mindset of, you know, longing dips on Hype, you can make a shit ton of money. But again, it's not something I actively trade. But, you know, again, if you want an area to be adding, you can look at something like this, right? We have our new range, we have our highs, again, kind of still breaking out of those highs. Once resistance now turns into support, and that's the level. And you can kind of draw something like this, and this, retest of that 42, 41 range would be a decent buy, and then, it can kind of go up higher from there. But again, I'm not actively trading hype. I am a spot holder of hype. So know the difference, please. Yeah, XRP is great, deviation outside of range, it has been kind of chilling in this discounted buy zone. I think it's still a great buy anywhere between, 220 all the way down to 180. Again, what's your game plan with it though? If you're buying spot and averaging in for spot, probably the best. But also, if you wanted to be trading at leverage, like I said, I would really wait for that lower limit or even like, these lows. But again, it might not happen. So you were given a lot of time on XRP, right? You were given this retest down here in April, retest back here the past couple of weeks at the beginning of June, end of May. You had a lot of time to kind of be building that position. I'm not going to chase XRP here. SEI. Oh man, every time someone brings up SEI, my heart fucking tweaks a little bit. I am down like 50% on this spot bag, but I'm still holding it. I think my average is around like that 38-cent range. But yeah, I'm a bag holder of SEI. It's unfortunate, but I've been able to make money elsewhere, so it's not really, the biggest issue to me. I would love to break even on this or sell everything at like 50 cents. I got a big bag of spot SUI as well. Again, I think that this one has been ranging pretty heavily. We did have some highs, but I do think that this is a decent support level to kind of be watching to hold in this area. And then we can move up to those highs of about that 540, 550 area. I got big plans for SCI down the road, man. I think that it can be a $10 coin at some point. But again, when is it going to happen? No, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's probably not going to happen next week. But over time, once these markets start to heat up, I really think SEI could be a good runner. Or I mean, SUI could be a good runner. Fuck SEI. Thank you guys again for joining. Shout out to the stream sponsors of CoinCatch and Breakout Prop. Really appreciate them. I love doing this stuff, guys. Every single week, I get excited for a new week of trading. I get excited for NPOC updates and the breakdowns on Friday. I really appreciate all you guys, and I'll see you over in the Telegram. Peace out.